Hey folks, welcome back. Today we are going to call this video mid-June garden tour. Typically at the end of each month I'll shoot a garden tour where I go bed to bed, and then in the mid-month I've been just kind of walking and talking through what's going on, changes, and there have been a lot of changes. Just to kind of give you a flavor of what can happen within a couple weeks time between month-to-month scenes. So we're going to go through, I don't even know exactly what I want to talk about yet, but we're going to start with what I'm going to call the overwhelmingly bad aspect of the garden that I've had so far, and that is my fava bean beds. I had 2 fava bean beds as a test to see if this could be a dried legume for me. I've got a playlist started on this that I'm probably not even going to close out because, as you're about to see, epic fail. The weeds notwithstanding, these 2 beds in the last video that I had in that series, which I'll go ahead and link the series above, the beds were full. But now all of a sudden they look less full. And why? Because the plants are just flat out dying. When I pull them out of the ground, they barely have a root system, the ones that die off, and the ones that still look relatively healthy, the pods have little spots all over them. So something in this is just not healthy, not good, and these are now going to be composted, and I'm going to call this little project a fail for the season and not look back at it. And I don't know if I'll do fava beans again. I might try a different variety. Maybe it was the seed that I used, some of it was home saved from when I actually grew a couple of plants successfully in the past. But again, with all the, I've actually had a lot of success this year throughout the garden, so I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm just going to call it not very successful and move on. Something that has been a fun change has been this little bed here. This was garlic bed number 1. The garlic has since come out, and now it is a flower bed, a combination of marigolds, zinnias, and cosmos. I think this is honestly the first time since I've had this garden that I have dedicated an entire bed to just flowers. I've put marigolds and zinnias in spaces before. Maybe I've had a full flower bed before, but it's been a couple of years at least. But I really wanted to go hard with one really big flower bed, and this was the first one that came open, so this one got it. I thought, I wanted it, in my head, I had it mentally more going somewhere in the middle of the garden, only to invite pollinators in from all directions where they have to cross through all the plants. But in the absence of having a bed like that open, this one I felt made a nice little location for it. And I think once these plants really take off, it's going to look a lot better. Most of those plants were actually fairly stunted because I stayed in cell packs for too long because I didn't have an open bed. So I guess technically I started them too early, but they look like they're stepping their game up now. And right next door, this bed was, my sugar snap peas, which didn't actually produce as well as I wanted to this year. They had a couple of really good harvests, and then all of a sudden, a lot of rain, a lot of heat up and down, and then they just started kind of getting moldy and just not very attractive. So those are out now, and in place I have my first round of bush beans, and the variety I'm going with is Provider. Now the reason that I'm putting my bush beans in for the first time in early to mid-June is because I noticed, when was it? 2 or 3 years ago, I put call it an April 15th, April 20th seeding of bush beans in the ground, and they got decimated by pests. The year after, same exact thing. But that second year, I followed them up with a June planting that matured in mid-late August, and we had amazing results with no pest damage. So last year, I went entirely with a midsummer planting, and it was absolutely fantastic. So whereas everybody else is going to be putting their beans in typically at the mid-late spring, I'm pushing about a month and a half at least, because I've just noticed now that pests, for whatever reason, like my bush beans, and I don't want to have a lousy haul for that kind of effort. Another spectacular win for me this year has been my carrot bed. This has probably actually been my best sowing of carrots that I've had. This bed is 3 rows, probably the plants are spaced. I've got a couple that are a little tight, but usually about 1 inch to 1.5 inches apart. And for the most part, I can pull, like I know that's, I can't guarantee that this carrot here, for example, is tapped down into the ground excessively deep. This is Danvers 126. It's about a half-length variety, so you can probably get a good solid 6 to 8 inches. The bottom 2 inches being very thin, the top 4 to 6 being pretty strong. But I can tell by the crown on that guy that he's going to be a real good thick carrot. And I'll usually come out and pick about 8 at a time. I'll go ahead and I'll pull the greens at the same time, and I'll usually just strip them off the plant and put those in for salads as well. But I'm thrilled with how this carrot bed has turned out, and I'm not sure if I need to create another one because this variety seems relatively bolt resistant. And I say that because last year I planted this variety alongside 4 other varieties at the exact same time. So it was probably a late Feb, early March sowing, and by mid-June, all 4 of the other varieties actually bolted. Despite the fact that I think by nature most carrots are a little more biennial, Danvers did not bolt, the other 4 varieties did, so I feel like these will carry me through summer beautifully. The question is whether or not I'll need to have another sowing for fall and winter. Something else that's always fun to see, even though it's expected, it's just kind of another signal of, the changing of the seasons from those springtime root crops that do really well to the summertime fruit crops that do really well. My pepper bed. We've got a lot of flowers coming on, and we're starting to see our first peppers. Now I typically, this is YOLO Wonder, the variety is. I've got them spaced probably about a foot apart in every direction. It's 2 rows in this bed of probably 18 to 20 plants in each row, so call it 36 to 40 plants. The spacing is maybe a little tight for some. It works really great for me. I don't bother trellising these up, so by the end of the season they're going to be pretty heavy with fruit and laden down and falling over. But I typically harvest these mostly green, actually, because I like the fact that when you pull them off green, it seems to signal to the plant that they didn't mature and they need to push out more fruit. So I just feel like the bang for the buck is better. Do they taste better when they're red? Oh yeah, but are they edible when they're green? Yes, and I seem to get more fruit that way, so it's a preference of mine to do that. And right next door, at the end of my lettuce bed, which still has not bolted, and that pleases me to no end because this bed was a surprise success, the lettuce was. My cucumbers, they're doing beautifully, and as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm stagger starting my cucumbers, so I've already got 2 more seedlings in process because I've noted in the past that my cucumbers seem to push hard for about 3 to 4 weeks and then they just die. So I'm trying to get better about starting in a more staggered state so I can always have more going into the ground. And you can see, yeah, we've got cucumbers, folks. And I've already harvested 2. I've harvested 4. I've eaten 1.5. I pulled 2 out this morning when I came into the garden for my kale. And yeah, so I'll be eating cucumbers really, really intensely for the next, well, I say for the next few weeks. Next few weeks off this plant, and then hopefully the following plants that go into the ground, assuming that I can transplant them successfully. One of the primary reasons I'm in the garden today, this morning, shooting this is because I had to come out early this morning to get my harvest of blackberries done, because last night I was in the garden and I got rained out. It's usually the last task of every day is going through my blackberry bed, which is behind me, and just fully harvesting everything that I find that looks black. And yeah, I got rained out last night, so I only got about 2 pounds. I probably had another 2 that needed to go. So today I got to finish that up. But let's take a look at these plants. So this row has been absolutely incredible for me. Starting first and foremost with this variety at the end. This plant is Primark Freedom. It is by reputation a primocane fruiting variety to fruit in the mid-fall, early mid-fall. But that fruit setting has never been impressive to me, but as a spring fruiting variety, it fruits amazing. And the berries are huge, and it's early compared to the other varieties. So where I was still, really deep into strawberries, Primark Freedom was throwing blackberries. I was just ecstatic with that. Now the other varieties are starting to finally catch up. He's done in some ways. You can see this long stalk here. We've pulled off pretty much everything from him. I'm actually probably going to take my pruners to him today and take that off just to kind of keep things tidy. But you can see The Primacanes are coming, and I've already started topping them right around the level of my top guide wire. I think I'll put a blackberry video together in the coming weeks just to kind of show you what I do. Not that I'm an expert by any stretch, but my pruning techniques have gotten a little better each year. Yes, I still have really long side shoots. I'm going to get better about keeping things a little tighter in the coming year, but this is a marked improvement over what I've done in the prior year with respect to pruning and patch maintenance. Without a doubt, one of the biggest changes in the garden from the last tour to today has come in the way of the fact that I've cleared beds. It's not even mid-June technically. I guess tomorrow or the 16th would be mid-June, depending on what day you look at it. But already I've cleared 11 beds, and I probably could legitimately remove another probably 5 or 6 that aren't really going to produce much more at this point. Whereas a lot of people's gardens are kind of just getting underway. A garden like this, where you lean into some of those late winter, early spring leaf and root crops, you've kind of already been into it for a while. So I'm going to show you some beds right now that have already produced really solid crops for me and are now into the next one. So right behind my flower bed, you can see this big section here. Last time we were out showing a tour, we had a load of garlic and a load of potato plants, and now we have none and none because they came out, and now we've got sweet potatoes. And I've probably got somewhere between 60 and 70 slips in each of these beds, and I've got 6 beds now. So yeah, we're gonna be deep in sweet potatoes. Probably my favorite crop to grow, if not my favorite, at least top 3. And then I've got a couple of beds here of southern peas. I don't know the variety. I think one is Piggott, and I can't remember what the other one is. I'll put the name on the screen if I can find the seed pack. I grew a different variety of these last year for the first time. I wasn't overly impressed with the growing experience of this particular crop. Maybe it's I had too much going on in the garden and it kind of got forgotten, but I was hoping to save them for dried seed, and by the time I got to the dried seed, they were moldy. So there is a bit of a sweet spot in harvesting dried. You can't just leave something in a pod in perpetuity and expect it to hold up. You've got to get it, I guess you've got to get it at a certain point for it to actually store, to one, come out of the pod properly, and then second, to store properly. And I whiffed on that big time last year. And again, that's only my fault. But so it is something if I really do want to grow a dried legume, it's something I've got to learn and get better at. These 2 beds were my Kennebec potatoes, and they came out yesterday. That was my first red Russian kale there in the back that I installed this year, and still going hard. I've got, the biggest issue I'm going to have with this is the fact that it's this and every other kale that I have. This variety doesn't seem to bolt in the heat the way I've lost all my mustard, I lost all my bok choy and tatsoi. They will get destroyed by caterpillars. And I guess it kind of bugs me, but it kind of doesn't, because I do still have beet greens, and I'll have the sweet potato leaves for summertime greens, and then I'll get more of this started in the fall. I don't know if I'll ever put the effort of trying to insect net those or just call it when it is. But it is amazing to be able to come out every single morning. I probably grab about a pound every single morning for my breakfast, throw it in the Instant Pot for a steam, and yeah, they're a wonderful, wonderful variety. If you're not growing them, I highly recommend you do so. And I think these 2 beds are going to now turn into, I'm probably gonna do more beans. I got a pound of those provider seeds, and I'll probably drill, a couple of lines in each one, and every 4 inches drop a seed, and load up a freezer full of green beans, because why not? And next to my jungle of bolted brassicas, which I left this year. I've never really let that go to seed before. I'm probably not going to try to save the seeds because I have plenty of them, but I wanted to give the pollinators something since I didn't have a whole lot of flowers in the garden otherwise. And you can see we got all kinds of little guys flying around, and I just don't have the heart to pull these things out when clearly I'm bringing them food. But the reason we're here are the beets. This is one of my 2 beet beds, and as you can see, maybe can see, we've got massive beets down here. That's probably a beet that's 4 inches in diameter. And they're just going to keep going. I've got 2 beet beds. I let them run all spring, all summer, all fall, and I'll just use these greens as a cut and come again. I'll just come out and literally just cut off right there and let the stem die back, and then the stem will just fall off, and that leaf comes in with me to the salads. And then eventually, when the freeze comes, the beets all come out of the ground and go into storage. And again, that's been one of my most wonderful crops to learn these past couple of years. So that's the mid-June update. Yeah, things change fast right now, especially when you're looking at the crops that are, like I said, the springtime crops that are kind of one and dones, like your root crops and some of your leaf crops. Even when they're not one and done, they do have a definitive ending period that's relatively early, especially in a hot climate like ours, versus your summertime crops like your beans and your zucchini, your tomatoes, your peppers, your cucumbers. If managed properly, those, after April 15th, they get going, and they keep going until the frost comes and kills them, and then you're done until the next summertime crop. But that's one reason I like to show this garden as it is because I'm really trying to get as much produce coming out as early as possible and as late as possible, and pushing into plant types that are not those summertime crops kind of affords me that opportunity. So I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. If you have any questions or comments, please post below. If there's anything I didn't show you that you want to see, feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer. And in the meantime, hope your garden's going well. I'll see you in the next one.